Welcome back to Chin Music, our baseball show at TalkNorth.com. It was Friday, and LaVelle and I were on a Zoom meeting with Tom Pohlad and Derek Falvey as they announced Derek Falvey stepping away from the organization, which will be the main topic of this podcast. And LaVelle goes, "Hey, Derek, by the way, Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah just got fired." And of course, Derek and Kwesi go way back. That was one of the strangest days in Minnesota sports history to see Derek Falvey and Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah go out basically simultaneously. And listen, I think Kwesi has been edging toward this for a while. I don't think any of us saw Derek Falvey stepping away. And of course, we will concentrate on the baseball aspect of this. That was a crazy day, LaVelle.
It was. And you're right. I think it's more surprising than what happened with Derek, especially at this stage of the offseason than what happened with Kwesi, because the demerits were piling up on Kwesi's side there. With the bad drafting and the free agent class this year that didn't pan out really well with Souhan, a guy who's had multiple concussions, and Hargrave had panned out.
And no backup quarterback.
Yeah, exactly. So, but Falvey being let go, I can understand how it got to this point because, the way the Pohlads don't do anything on schedule or in any conventional terms. And Tom, was just announced as the new executive chair. So he was looking at the organization and trying to figure out ways to kind of make it more effective. I don't know how successful he's going to be at it because at the end of the day, his last name is Pohlad, and that means it's not going to end up. It's the chances of things being better aren't that great. But I totally understand his reasoning in terms of one person should not have business ops and baseball ops under their title. I always thought that was a very odd promotion that Falvey got a year or two ago in that regard. But the surprising thing is they couldn't agree on a vision going forward to which Derek could go back to just being the director of baseball operations. That was intriguing to me. That tells me that Falvey's idea of what the next few years should look like is different from what Tom's idea of what the next few years are going to look like. And we can only imagine and shudder to think what Tom is actually thinking about how they're going to proceed over the next couple of years. I tend to think, Jim, that Derek's probably better off not being around right now. He may be somewhat relieved that he's not running baseball with the Twins right now. Everything that's happened since 2023 has tied his hands. Cutting the payroll by $30 million after defeating the Blue Jays and getting to the second round of the postseason. Cutting it further. Payroll sitting at 105 right now. Maybe get to 110, 115 by opening day if they sign a couple more players. But the fire sale was not his idea. Now I think once he started doing it and once he found a way to get Lou Correa's contract, I think he switched into, let's see if I can maximize the value of some of the guys I have. I still don't agree with trading Varland, but that I think that one's on Falvey. But this whole thing was initiated by the family. So I think Derek's better off not being involved with this mess right now. And the next couple of years are definitely going to be messy. With this year, probable work stoppage in 2027, and we'll see how things come out on the other side. And by then, Derek will have a nice job elsewhere.
So much more to get into in this regard, what this does for the franchise. Let's reset. This is Chin Music, part of TalkNorth.com. We are coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services studio. The show is presented by Onyx Maps. Usually we have a 3-person show, Roy Smalley, LaVelle E. Neal III, and myself, Jim Souhan. Today, Roy is busy with his A job, so it's going to be just me and LaVelle, 2 longtime baseball writers from the Star Tribune who also now work for TalkNorth.com. And we will talk about Buddy Guy at the end of the show in our Booze and Blues segment. So I think you hit exactly what's going on here, LaVelle, and why people should be so concerned. For all the complaints about payroll and Pohlads and all that stuff, the reality is from 2019 through 2023, this team won 3 division titles in 5 years. They won their first playoff series since 2002. 2002. They won 101 games. They set a home run record. They made very savvy moves. Getting Nelson Cruz was savvy. Trading Nelson Cruz for Joe Ryan was savvy. Trading somebody who ended up not being a player for Jake Odorizzi was savvy. They did, finding a way to get Correa signed, and then finding a way to re-sign him when things fell through elsewhere. I mean, they did a lot of things that made this a really admirable organization. And while the Pohlads might not have ever spent what people wanted them to spend, it was a very stable organization. And I pointed out in my column the other day, they had Dave St. Peter, who everybody admires as their president. They had Derek Falvey and Thad Levine, who seemed to really work well together and get a lot done. They had Rocco, who's a very smart guy as their manager, and they had they either had James Rowson or Popkins as their hitting coach, two very highly regarded hitting coaches, both who've gone on to success. Now you look at it, and it's Tom Pohlad with Dave St. Peter kind of mostly out the door, no Falvey. And Jeremy Zoll, everybody thinks highly of Jeremy Zoll, but he's 35 years old, and now he's the main baseball person. Thad's gone. Popkins is gone. It's like, and they're not spending money. And I thought what was scary about the Tom Pohlad press conference the other day is somebody brought up payroll, and he was like, well, if we win, we'll raise payroll. Ignoring the fact that with this roster, you might have to raise the payroll to win.
You're right about that. He's talking on both sides of his neck when he says stuff like that. You have to invest in a team, and that's something that didn't happen. That's the reason why the 2025 Twins happened, is because they didn't invest in the team. And then, now you're going to talk about you want to compete this year, just after everything that was done at the trade deadline and how the team played in the second half of the season. All of a sudden, we're going to just flip a switch and this team's going to be more competitive. And you're thinking, getting Rocco out of the house and bringing Shelton back is going to all of a sudden magically change things around. I don't know what he's smoking on that one, man. Yes, there's potential here. Royce can turn things around. Wallner can find that, generate. He can tap into that 40 home run swing that he has. You're going to have decent start. You're going to have a solid rotation. Yes. But you're going to be you're relying on a lot of things to suddenly present themselves that didn't present themselves a year ago. And to me, that's more like hope. And as we know, hope is a terrible strategy, man. And, they think that they could be hanging around in July, and all of a sudden, if they're a couple games out of first place or somewhere in that realm on July 1st, and maybe they'll start going for it. But I don't know if they're going to be at that point. Tell me who's going to bat third or fourth, and tell me who's going to close out games.
No, that's exactly right. And listen, I've covered all the Pohlads. I covered Carl. And Carl, obviously, Carl was great in that he hired Andy McPhail and Tom Kelly, and he let them work. And he also, back then, the different disparity between what the top team spent and what the mid-market team spent wasn't that glaring. So you could find it. And back then, you could go get Jack Morris and Chili Davis for like $1 million a piece. And go win a World Series. Completely different landscape. 93 happens. The work stoppage happens. Carl didn't try to compete for years. Ended up being a terrible owner toward the end of his tenure. Just as bad an owner as you can imagine. And then after that, I thought Bob tried to do a good job, but just wasn't really into it. And Joe wasn't up for it. He just wasn't ready for this kind of stuff. And Jim Pohlad, even though he's not the most warm, cuddly kind of guy to be around, at least he ran a good organization. And yes, they could have spent more during Jim's tenure, but he also green-lighted spending money for Correa, right? And
he did.
And that was whatever the payroll was, it was a well-run organization that did spend plenty of money on facilities and international scouting and international facilities. And it was a real, highly functioning baseball operation, regardless of the payroll size. Tom, I don't know, I just don't get any sense that he knows how to do this stuff.
Well, okay, let's go back to Tom's background here. There was a year when he was an intern in Major League Baseball, working in their league office in New York. All right. He didn't know what the hell he wanted to do with his life at the time. And he's mentioned that. He's brought that up. The best part about the internship, which was 28 years ago, I want to say, something like that, was that he met his future wife. He came out and said that during his introductory press conference or reintroductory press conferences. I haven't seen his ass since the year he was an intern. Since then, he's been on the business side. All we know is that of all Carl's grandkids, Joe seemed to be the only one that really gave a crap about baseball and wanted to make baseball work and wanted to work at it. He worked in various departments, came to operations, ran a radio station. No, that didn't turn out very well. But he was willing to invest the time to learn about baseball before he got into the executive chair. Tom didn't. Tom went on the business side. So you tell me all of a sudden Tom's going to come over from the business side, all of a sudden have all the answers how to make this a winning baseball organization? I've got problems with that. He's got to prove that he can be reasonable, sensible, that he has a clear vision of what's going to happen and how to get it done, and that he can be a uniter and a collaborator at the same time. We don't know if he can do that for baseball. I'm guessing he must have done it okay on the business side, but I don't know if it's going to work for baseball. So that's why I'm looking at this with skepticism. I do think his first decision, breaking up baseball ops and business ops, is the way to go there. Handing the keys over to Jeremy Zoll. I know Jeremy a little bit. We butted heads a few times when he first joined the organization. I was working with minor leagues because I would call him whenever I saw a minor leaguer leave a game and wonder if he was injured, and he would get mad at me for that. But he's 35, and I know he has some assistance in contract negotiation and trades, but now he's in a big chair, man. I don't know if he's ready for it. I was thinking maybe Tom would also bring in a baseball ops guy just to have a layer between him and Jeremy, but I guess not. So I'm looking at this season with a little trepidation over the fact that Tom Pohlad, all of a sudden, after years of being on the business side, is coming in to try to save baseball.
Agreed. All right. I want to get more into the Falvey and St. Peter and what's next dynamic here next. And of course, we'll do Booze and Blues at the end. First one, we're coming from the Aquarius Home Services studio.
Scott for Aquarius, your authorized independent Connecticut dealer. It's 2026 and time to fix your problem water. Time to enjoy spotless dishes, softer skin, cleaner laundry, and say goodbye to funny taste and odors. Upgrade today and enjoy no payments and no interest for 6 months on a new high-efficiency Connecticut water treatment system. Schedule your free water test at AquariusHomeservices.com. Financing based on credit approval. Aquarius, earning the right to be recommended.
Chin Music is also presented by OnX Maps, including OnX Fish. The Fish app offers the most comprehensive fishing tool for increasing your success. Use the Fish app to find new places to fish and sort lakes by species, abundance, trophy, and keeper potential. OnX Fish also shows you hot spots, lake-by-lake regulations, and private and public land ownership information. Download OnX Fish on the App Store or go to onxmaps.com/fish to get more information about the app that is changing the game. So, they don't really have they've had a Dave St. Peter figure in the organization for a very long time. And Jerry Bell, he didn't really get too involved with baseball operations, but he was really key to getting Target Field done. Dave St. Peter becomes the president after Jerry Bell. Dave has been somebody everybody likes and respects. And now St. Peter's basically mostly out the door. Falvey's out the door. What do they do there? And do they need another St. Peter type figure?
I would say yes. And I was thinking, one day it would be someone like Dustin Morris, who was put, I always believe he was on the junior executive plan as soon as he joined the Twins and Dave St. Peter took a liking to him. And I know, he spent the last 2-3 years, spending a lot of time with Dave, learning about the business side and connecting with local politicians and business figures, so I thought he was kind of being groomed for that role. But once again, that's why it was a little interesting that Falvey ended up overseeing business ops because, and Tom laid it out too, the requirements for that job are multiple, and especially when he made the point about someone who's able to generate revenue, and I don't know if that's up Falvey's alley. I think Falvey's more of a builder of rosters and builder of organizations. And he was the mastermind behind this, or the baseball side, moving in from the old times into the new times, expanding the operations department, expanding analytics, building R&D, research and development side and all that. It looks like they need a St. Peter type now to kind of oversee all of that. And Dave was so adept. And Dave was a guy who started running a Twins pro shop, right? Mm-hmm. That's how he broke in with the Twins, and he slowly worked his way up the ladder and became what he was. I think we're about the same age too. I was like, wow, here I am. I'm just a scrubby baseball writer, and this guy's a president of a baseball organization. We're about the same age. I said, what did I do wrong? But and I know that Dave is still on as an advisor. I communicated with him, after the firing or after parting ways with Falvey. He still is there to advise, but it seems like they're going to need more than his advice going forward here.
Yes. And I don't know. I saw a rumor someplace that Thad Levine could come back as kind of a Falvey type. Do you buy that at all?
I don't know why that would come back. I mean, he's with Milwaukee right now. Milwaukee's got a chance to go to the World Series. It's a winning organization. And although there's a vacuum here that he definitely could fill, no doubt. We know how sharp
he'd have to be on the same page as Tom. We don't know if anybody's going to be on that page.
Yeah, we don't know if Tom has a page when it comes to baseball. And that actually, if I think about it, Thad would come in. He would be like the lifesaver there. They'd probably give him free reign to do whatever the hell he wanted, just because there's not too many people in that front office now who are adept in baseball ops, other than Jeremy. So, I mean, it sounds interesting, definitely. If it's possible, if I were just Twins, I'd go for it for sure. But I think,
like you said, he might not want to come into the situation.
But I also believe that he still lives in town. I believe his kids are still going to school here. So there would be some convenience there, coming back over the border to work here. But it's worth a conversation, isn't it, Jim?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think he'd be a good addition. I don't know that I expect it to actually happen. Well, that was the baseball news of the week. We also want to get, and we're going to be talking about prospects and how they put this thing together, in the near future. But we got to get to our Booze and Blues segment because Buddy Guy won a Grammy, which is just wonderful.
Absolutely. Stunner too, because I was busy watching goalies fight in the Stadium series yesterday. And all of a sudden it comes across my phone. Buddy Guy wins a Grammy. I didn't even know he had an album out, so I feel terrible. I think the album is Buddy's 89 years old, man. He's 89. He's been playing for like 70 years. That's just crazy, And I believe what's the name of the album? The album he's got out. It's a really appropriate title given where Buddy's at in his career. It is called "Ain't Done with the Blues," which makes a lot of sense for Buddy. And I was actually, before I signed on here, I was listening to some of the title song. It's called "How Blues Is At," and he came out riffing on that guitar. I mean, he makes that thing talk, man. I've had a chance to see Buddy Guy 2 or 3 times through the years. Saw him downtown Minneapolis. Saw him at the zoo in Apple Valley once, and then I saw him open for the Rolling Stones at what used to be called Xcel Energy Center. And he came back out. He opened for him. Then the Stones came out. He came out and played. I think it was Mustang Sally with him. And I swear, Keith Richards and those guys had to keep up with him. He was just rolling. So the fact that he's still putting out albums and he's putting out high quality albums to win a Grammy, just marvelous, just remarkable. And it just kind of warmed our heart with all the crap that's going on in this world right now to just know that Buddy is out there still doing this thing.
No doubt about it. I always tell people that one of the things I always go back to is the 25th anniversary Rock and Roll Hall of Fame concert in Madison Square Garden, where he had Sting playing with Stevie Wonder. He had Smokey Robinson playing with Stevie Wonder. And one of the highlights was Jeff Beck playing with Buddy Guy. And they jam it out. Buddy walks off the stage, and Jeff Beck, maybe the most innovative, talented guitarist of all time, top 5, along with, Hendrix and Prince and all the other greats. But Jeff Beck looks at him and goes, "Oh my God, I just got to play with Buddy Guy."
Yeah. And you're talking probably 2 of the top 5 living guitarists right now.
Yep.
Beck and Buddy Guy.
Well, Beck's dead.
I would put Clapton would be up there. Maybe John Bonamassa, maybe. The 5th one's always an argument. It seems like people bring up Carlos Santana, and people bring up the guitarist V2. I don't know.
The Edge is not in that category. The Edge is great because he knows how to create sounds with everything at his disposal and crazy sound effects and all that. But he's not the kind of influence or great guitarist that these guys are.
Yeah, but I mean, the Beck and Buddy guy, just to have that collaboration on the same stage, that's just remarkable. I don't know who else. Buddy's had to play, or he's had to be on a stage with Clapton at one time or another.
He's played with everybody.
So, it was just a great celebration of blues music by Hannah giving the Grammy yesterday. I was just fired up over that.
And you should be. That's fantastic stuff. All right, let's get a final thought on anything in the baseball world LaVelle wants to share with us. Once again, this is TalkNorth.com. Check out all of our other great shows. We have Alec Lewis, Jeff Diamond, separate two, a great beat writer on the Vikings. Also, Jeff Diamond, former Vikings general manager, on all the Vikings moves. We have the Viking Update show with myself and John Krasinski getting into all of this stuff. We have the John Krasinski show on the Timberwolves, Russo on hockey, Mark Rosen Sports Monday, Don Mitchell's interview show, outdoor content. Check it out all out at TalkNorth.com. When you find a show you like, please subscribe to your favorite podcast app. It's the easiest way to listen, and we do appreciate it. All right, LaVelle, give us a final thought.
Well, I was at Twins Fest a couple weeks ago, and sat in on some interviews. And one of the more interesting ones was with Bailey Ober. You forget how hard it is to pitch and be able to maintain your mechanics through 32 starts a season. And Bailey was battling a hip injury last year and tried to pitch through it. And he got through the hip injury, but he mechanically got so out of whack that he was not mechanically sound for the rest of the year. And I was like, well, do you regret trying to pitch through it? And his thing was, well, as a pitcher, that you may have your A game, maybe 7 or 8 starts a year. And then you may have a B game for another 5 or 6 starts. But then there's a bunch of starts where you have your C game. And I thought when I was dealing, with the hip injury that I was having like a B/C game. And as a starter, you have to be prepared for those days and you have to grind through it. And he just thought, I'm just having a C game today and I still have to fight through it. So, but he ended up being out of whack. So he has spent the offseason redoing his mechanics and he feels like he's back. And Bailey Ober, when he's mechanically sound, the ball's halfway through the plate when he releases it. And he's a really effective guy who is good at limiting damage. If he gets up a home run, it's usually a solo blast. Although he got away from that last year when he was out of whack mechanically. So one of the things I'm looking forward to in spring training is seeing how Ober is looking on the plate. And I just wanted to bring that one up as my one final thought, because I just wanted to get back to talking about baseball instead of all the other bullshit that's going on right now.
Good stuff. Appreciate it, LaVelle. We'll talk again next week. We'll probably have Roy with us. We'll start getting to spring training previews, and maybe the Twins will actually make some more news that will absolutely shock us between now and then.